Yeah.
No, you should feel free to comment whenever you want.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you, Nann.
Thank you.
Along that same net neutrality, we kind of discussed at last meeting about possibly doing some kind of, as Jane put it, the educational meeting in regards to net neutrality, and we were hopefully going to look into some experts to man maybe a panel of presenters. I can tell you that the folks that I sent requests to did not get back to me, and I sent that out before what would have been our meeting last week, and I had not received any information back from those that I sent it to.
Were you going to talk to somebody about possibly coming to present to us?
Yes, and I can make a report whenever.
Would you like to say a few words in regards to that?
We contacted Beth Kimowitz, who is a who's kind of if you look at, she's a lawyer, and I actually went to law school with her, but that's a coincidence because she was referred to me in another way. But anyway, so I contacted her, and for the most part of her career, she's been a legal librarian at the parish library, which is the business school library. So this person who made the referral thought that she would have kind of the business aspects and the legal aspects to make to help us. She is not an expert on net neutrality, but she recommended the librarian at the law school, and she recommended someone at the AG, and I have already talked with the Assistant Attorney General who does telecommunications for the AG and utilities. And I was thinking that he would be a presenter, but he said he couldn't be a presenter. But I'm going to contact him and talk with him some more about the people that he may know. She suggested someone from the ACLU. Legal director there is Leon Howard, or the executive director, Peter Simonson. All along, and I have thought about some of the activists. Sometimes the activists attend these meetings. So, for example, someone from the media literacy group, which has disbanded now, might be knowledgeable. And I've talked with Southwest Organizing Project too, to see if they're interested in doing a presentation. So, we'll work on this, and now we'll really push on it, because maybe we'll try and get this in July, right?
As a meeting or as a special
Or in the
educational
proposal to
event?
Comcast?
No, as a, no, not as a proposal to Comcast, but as a presentation. So whether it's at a meeting or in a special time slot by itself, that's up to you, all of you.
I would almost say, in order to get it put together and advertised, we're probably talking about August.
Okay.
We don't even have a speaker yet, Jane.
I know, I know.
And the fact that it's after the point that Congress and the Senate didn't do anything to revoke the net neutrality ruling that the FCC put together. So at this point, I think we need to discuss, what is our hope in this? Do we want to just educate the public that this is coming, that make it a point in this election in November, midterm elections, you know, what are we trying to do with getting a presentation on the net neutrality that people would be excited about? Already done, I can't do anything about it. When in fact, we had a discussion that, yeah, these are the grassroots things that people can actually take a part in and go back and discuss and maybe make a difference. That, I mean, I'm just putting that out for discussion.
For the board to discuss, that's definitely up to you all to determine what the purpose of these would be.
Well, I think that getting any kind of interest from the public on net neutrality is worth the effort, because we can try to get local ordinances that deal with it, and it can become an issue for the upcoming elections.
Okay.
And so I think that getting people aware of what that net neutrality means, what it is, and what it means to use it is important, even if it's just a general explanation.
Very good. Maybe, Jane, we could ask, once we have a date, the governor candidates and the senators from the state. I mean, we can go big with it. Just they may not show up, but at least if we invite them, as well as certainly the mayor, city council members. Even state representatives that are in the Albuquerque districts. Just a thought.
No.
Jim?
I have a question. I feel that net neutrality really need to be dealt with by the city council. I think it's more of a policy issue rather than an advisory issue. That's my opinion. We can make a recommendation to the administration, but I really feel this is a policy issue. The more I look into it, the more it looks like a policy thing. So
I would like to put the idea of drafting a resolution regarding net neutrality on our agenda for next time.
Well, I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'd like to place drafting a resolution on net neutrality for our agenda next time.
Okay, and I do have a point of information for the board. So I know I have to say that I have been trying to rewrite the public right-of-way ordinance for telecommunications services for the last probably 6 months or something. And now we really have to get it done in the next couple of months, because we have to incorporate some provisions in the ordinance about small cells, because we've been attacked by the telecommunications industry in the legislature in limiting the amount that the city can charge on the pole attachments, and also a lot of other limitations on the traditional right of the city to regulate the appearance of the antennas and the small cells and that kind of thing. And my plan, and in talking with my clients, it is a plan that I have come up with, talking with the people in the administration and the department heads, that this telecom right-of-way ordinance will have in it similar language to what the Comcast, our proposed Comcast ordinance have in it. And so this is how it may come up in front of the city council, because it will be in an ordinance. And so the language in the Comcast ordinance is that Comcast accepts its franchise authority with the understanding that it will abide by principles of net neutrality, in a nutshell. So this other ordinance will say the same thing.
For the
It's the
telecom.
same idea.
So are you saying that we may not need to draft a resolution?
No, you need to,
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah, right.
Because.
But it's gonna come up,
Right.
that's what I'm saying.
It will be there and we're gonna lead the way.
Exactly.
All right.
That's
Woo
well-
woo!
well
All in favor say.
Well put.
All right. I agree with your idea about the resolution, Sandy. I do believe we need to.
And we almost have to do it because if we're going to propose and hopefully encourage and negotiate net neutrality with Comcast, and I'm not, you know, we have to do the same thing with all the telecom providers.
10-4.
Can you come with some possible language for us
Yes,
next
I
time?
have it here.
Okay, cool.
Terrific. Okay, let's
And
move to item 4.
And what
Looks
I
like-
can do is use the mayor's statement.
Oh, yeah,
That has
Follow
very
it,
good-
yeah.
Yes, would that be okay?
yeah.
Mhm. I think so.
I'm sorry, I missed that one.
The
that-
same statement that the mayor adopted?
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Very similar to that
Yes,
with a tweak or two,
yes,
I think, to refer to the hearing board.
okay.
That'd be terrific. With maybe a couple smiley faces or something, I don't know.
Power to the people, right? Raise fists.
Okay, now here's another one for Jane to help us through. Item 4, public access channels review and the status of the city's request for proposal for public access, local origination, public television services. Now,
That's more Jane's.
it was mentioned last time by you, Jane, I believe, that we could not get what was proposed by the proposees because of legal issues.
Right, and I have gotten that message again.
Say again, I'm sorry, I missed that one too.
Well,
I'm sorry.
So we wanted to see what people were proposing.
Right.
We wanted to be able to compare and contrast. We can't, because they won't let us look at the proposals.
Right. It's a legal issue that,
yeah.
So
it's a no-no.
The legal issue is that these proposals are confidential until the decision is made.
Okay.
I don't know.
So basically, that subject is moot then, we can't even
Well,
discuss it.
here's the only thing I think we have heard, and may hear some more tonight, in regards to public access, and that from what we've heard, we could make recommendations, if I'm not mistaken.
So one thing that I do want to bring up is one of the things I've heard
Mhm.
is that quote unquote allegedly missed the deadline for filing their proposal. And that it looked like it was a serious miscommunication on the part of the city.
Right.
And I think that we should immediately recommend to the city that they reconsider that and allow quote unquote to make an application.
And I got the same
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I know that I heard the same information there. We need to know the reason behind why, before we even make a recommendation.
Oh, we know the reason.
Okay, I don't know the reason.
Well, let's let
I
Jane
don't
tell
know
us
the
the
reason.
reason.
Jane, take it away. Tell us why they were late, in your opinion.
Well, so I'm out of the loop, and maybe we should wait for public comment, because I think
Okay.
there are people here who have firsthand knowledge of
Yeah,
what happened.
So I think we were jumping ahead there, because we need to, because
Yeah.
I don't know why they were late.
Right.
I mean, you may have heard something, or he may have heard something, I didn't hear anything. All I know is they were late, I don't know the reasoning behind that.
Right. And so we're going to move past that point on the item 4. Nan, did you ever look into the appraised value of
Oh,
egg
that's my
channels?
job.
You got those?
Yeah, and can we defer this, because I didn't talk with Nann about it.
Okay. Well, I think
I'm sorry. And I'll be happy to talk with you individually.
Okay.
And then you can discuss it and make any recommendations as a group
Okay.
at the next meeting.
All right, well, let's put that on the agenda.
So we're deferring what now?
The second bulletin, or second bullet under item 4.
Item 4, the appraised values. And something that was not on the agenda, but we did discuss it in the meeting notes of last meeting. Let me, hang on. Under item 6 on the last time, and it was in regards to the channels, and that we did not want to lose any of our channels. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So currently, the current ordinance reserves 9 channels. Clearly, you're using 3. Arguably, you're using 4. Comcast wants the other 5 back. Meanwhile, we've gotten, administration has gotten requests from both the Village of Los Ranchos and the Village of Village of Corrales to also have access. So, you know, the city needs to make a decision on what it's willing to talk to Comcast about.
Right.
But we have not crossed that path just yet.
So are you, then would our negotiating point be that we want to keep the 4 and 2 more that we could share with Corrales and Los Ranchos?
You could make that argument, but I do not think that Comcast or Corrales and Los Ranchos have 168 hours each of programming a week. So my guess is those 2 villages could probably share a channel. But, you know, that's still, you know, that's my assessment.
Did they give you a reason for why they want them back?
So they can settle.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's your explanation. I want to know what they say.
No, I think that's right.
It's about the bandwidth.
Yes, it's about the bandwidth.
Because that was without, I mean, to them it goes without saying.
Yes, they
They didn't underline anything. This is
the only
reason
thing they
why.
highlighted was that we're not really using the 4th channel, and that they've heard nothing or justifying from the city their need for 9. So they wanted our argument on why we need 9 when we barely use 3.
And if we give them an argument, would they actually sit?
I think this is one of those issues that'll probably go down to the wire. I think this is one of those things where,
The city can't afford to lose any of those money, as far as I'm concerned.
if they have a value. But if they have a value, what do we get in exchange for giving up that value? So that,
Why couldn't the city say, well, with those channels, we want to sell them? Would that be a contractual thing that we can't, if they're given to us, we can't sell the channels to somebody to franchise it, to...
I think that's another one of those uphill legal battles where, you know, they let us use it. And they didn't give it to us, kind of like they claim they didn't give us the iNet capacity, right? So you'd have to make a legal argument that they gave them to us and they are now ours. And I'm not finding any examples of any munis that have prevailed on that argument either. But I think this is a big deal for us, and it's not such a big deal for them, at least.
But they didn't give you an impression that they were ironclad on this thing, right? So it is still open to somewhat of a discussion, right?
I view it that way. You know, we only had a 5-minute conversation about those, where they just said, you're not using 5 of them. You're really not using 6 of them. They made a point of pointing that out, but they did counter propose on the channel, so they've moved a little bit.
Okay.
They moved a little bit, you know. They're here, we're here. I'd say they moved about here. So I think they know the value of it to us. So they're going to hold that one close, I think. I don't think we'll resolve that one until the last week in July. That'd be my guess.
I think that's kind of important to us. I don't know if we're able to even negotiate something like that. And it has to do with what I was.
Mr. Chair, we're now at 7 o'clock.
Well, we better start moving along. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Let's,
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Sure.
I wasn't finished with that. I need a couple of
sure,
minutes.
please.
Are we gonna, Nann, I'm sorry,
Okay.
I have a question. I have a question for you.
Sure.
I know you're in a rush, guys, but I have a question. Is there at some point we're gonna find out whether they're gonna absolutely yank some channels from us?
Yes, I think we'll know that for the next couple of weeks. And it sounds like it's something we probably need to bring back to this board for sure.
It's important to me because I had brought up something too.
So you have a meeting for July 10, we can push on that issue between now and July 10.
Do you recall? I mean, I know you can talk about it later, but there was something in regards to the channels that you had mentioned that I need to kind of talk about it later, or bring it up later, and I was waiting for that. So could we, maybe I'll talk to you later about it. before I
About the
bring
peg
it-
channels?
About
Yeah.
the peg channel, the 9 peg channels, and having to do with the distribution. So, and I don't think I should go any further, but I know we're short on time right now.
Right.
It is important to the city that we have all those 9, so I'm not sure how we can present that, but we need to have a discussion on that. It's important to me, and I know I can probably bring it up to the board.
Mhm.
We can discuss it amongst ourselves.
Okay.
But there is something that I need to propose to the board for discussion, and it has to do with the channels. And that was kind of a shocker to me that they want to yank 4 of them away.
Right. Well, do you think,
We can talk about that at a later at the next meeting.
okay, put that on the agenda.
If we could, yeah, because it has to do with the distribution of
Okay.
channels and the entire 9 channels that we have. And that's kind of like, that's just stumped me that they want to take away certain channels.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's,
Um, Okay, so, yeah, we'll put that on the agenda. Okay. Let's move to 6 quickly. Were you able to just find out anything
You
from?
mean 5?
What's that?
You mean 5?
5. You know, if I could read, it would be great. The status of email alert regarding submissions on the board's
So it
webpage.
definitely is on the webpage, and the one thing that we, staff and, that we did in this interim between these 2 meetings is submit all the email addresses, including Sandy's. And so I don't believe that there have been other electronic comments, but
Okay.
it is on the webpage
All right.
that you link onto, if there's a hyperlink, and then when you click on it, then it gives a page where you can put your electronic comment. Yes, it's activated.
Okay. Now, the other thing that we had begun to discuss was adding on our web page an internet speed tester. A link to an internet speed
Right.
tester.
Yes, no, we didn't get around to that, but I think that Comcast has that. I don't.
I found it. You
And it
can't-
is part of the proposal?
No, it's actually on their website.
They're already doing it.
Yes,
Oh.
Comcast.net.
I think it's almost self-serving though, if you go to Comcast and do their web tester. It needs to be a third party, and That's my opinion.
So that's a technical point that I missed completely.
Okay,
So let me talk with Matt Mays about that.
I appreciate that.
Okay, sorry.
That's no problem. Okay, so
So
that's
that's on the
tabled.
next agenda too.
Yeah, I'm gonna, and I have it highlighted as something for me
It
to
is on
do.
their website, but no one knows about it.
Well,
It's a total secret.
you can't find it.
Yeah, it's a secret.
If you're on their homepage, you can't figure out how to get there.
You have to.
So I
do a search.
Googled Comcast, speed test,
Yeah.
and it is there.
There you go. That's one of those little details on customer service that would really be good. Okay, let's do this. Let's move to public comment. And as we're running, oops, sorry. As we're running tight, if you could keep your comments short and yet complete, that would be very kind of all of you. So let's start with Mr. Hunter. You have the floor.
Okay, my name is Willard Hunter. I'm going to go over some things very quickly. Comcast has unused channels of theirs, and before they take ours, they need to use theirs. That's very clear and that's very important. The second thing is, I recently had a guy from Comcast come to check my speed. He did not use the Comcast speed tester because it doesn't work, and he used another one, and I can get it to Jane if you want to know it. It's not good. Third thing,
This was a Comcast employee?
this is a Comcast employee. I was complaining that I was not getting the speed that I was paying for. And what they concluded was I didn't have the proper modem router.
Right.
So I had to buy a brand new one, so I had to spend a lot of money to do that. The third thing is net neutrality speaker. I spoke with somebody at UNM Communications Department. She wasn't very interested. She put it on the listserv, and I've not gotten any response back from anybody at the UNM Communications Department that's interested in briefing the cable board.
Thank you for trying.
Yeah. Fourth thing is PEG funding. That should not be set by Comcast. That money is used for capital expenditures of the city. It should be the city that sets that rate. What they want to do is they want a 36% raise in what they charge customers. And the other thing about that is that it's the Comcast customers that pay the PEG fee. And so we're paying for city improvements, and the Comcast should not set that fee. Should be the city that sets that fee. And my last point is I'm disappointed that you only received the first 2 pages of what I submitted. Actually, I submitted something that's about 17 or 18 pages. Yeah, 17 pages.
The appendices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need the appendices because the appendices support what the arguments that I made in the first 2 pages. And I want to point out a few things in the appendices. First, your predecessors back in 2012 made a very strong statement to the City Council, which Trudy Jones's council ignored. And the recommendation was that the City Council not approve UPublic or GCDBA UPublic as the contract awardee for the channels. And after the City Council ignored the input from your predecessors, 2 of the 3 members of the cable board resigned in protest. They were very angry that the City Council ignored their council. And as I point out in this, in what I submitted, for 6 years, UPublic has done a very poor job of running the cable, the public access channels. I am just incredibly disappointed. There probably aren't too many people in the city that track channels 20, Comcast channels 26, 27, and 96. I happen to be one of those people that do, and I've done analysis of their performance versus the contract, and I find them very, very lacking. And in addition, what I submitted here are 2 letters that Jane Yee wrote to the U-Public folks, to Rick Metz, who was very concerned about their performance. And those are in the appendices. And I think it is incumbent upon you folks in the cable franchise board to make some sort of recommendation to the city council about this. And I hope the city council does not ignore your recommendation as Trudy Jones's council did back in 2012, because it's been absolutely disaster.
Mr. Hunter, I have got a silent communication from Danielle that she doesn't have your appendices. Would you be so kind as to give your copy to Danielle, and then she can get that to us?
Okay, well, I have sent them to Jane. You don't have it?
The copy I got from Jane didn't have the appendices on them, so Jane may have them.
But since you're here, one just...
I can give you my copy, but I'd rather send it to you electronically. It'd be much more convenient.
That's fine, we have
Were
it.
they attached to the?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, then that's what I forwarded to.
Okay.
Danielle.
Well, there was a glitch. You. Thank
So
you.
we have all kinds of filters on the system, and maybe, I'm not sure what happened.
Thank you
I
very
can
much.
send it to the 3 of you, actually. Now that we have your emails, right?
Well, you can put it on the webpage, and then it will forward to the members.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Okay. Steve,
Oh, it's me.
that's you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. Actually, I was going to read a whole long thing and so forth, blah, 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 and so forth. So I'll just cut that out a little bit. I think you're getting light. But there's one thing I really definitely feel I need to talk about, say so, and sometime in the future, near future, we need to talk about this at the Albuquerque. Okay, and that's about Channel 27. Okay, I'll just read this out here. I want to make it clear that under no way will we allow any other organization or any other city of Albuquerque to use Channel 27 other than quote unquote unless Channel 27 was made. Okay, because Channel 27 was made by the people in Channel who did all the work. Okay, it wasn't anything that was the city of Albuquerque did this and so forth. There's a whole lot of people. I was one of them out there digging and stuff like that, And Channel 27 has been here for a long, long time. Okay, and I will just say that we are willing, very willing, at other organizations, companies, and so forth, to work with them. But the city has no right to take away us, Channel 27, and that's what happened in 2012 till just a little while ago. That has to happen. We have to get rid of that. You have to do something about that. You have to realize that a lot of people were hurt by that, and they had absolutely no, the city had no reason, no whatsoever, to do that, So we just need to make sure that the people here understand that. Okay. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
It hurt a lot of people. Okay.
Which is, thank you. We, from my get-go on this board, that's I have heard that, and I'm quite sure. So, is there something
Well,
else?
Jones, well, yes, and I can say that, a lot of this happened also with Jones Cable, Channel 27, okay? But Jones, they basically helped us, all right? And so between the two of us, we did something very good, okay? But what happened recently was terrible. So I'll just leave it at that, and I'll let somebody else talk about this, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Well, I had a question for Steve.
Oh, sure.
Steve,
Oh, okay. Okay.
sorry.
Sure.
And I'm the only one that didn't know your reason for submitting your application late.
Okay.
You can kind of give me that sort, because apparently they know I don't know anything about
I'm sorry, you came on later than
Yeah,
we.
yeah. So I have no idea why the application was late, and if you can kind of give me sort of an idea. I mean, because their deadlines are deadlines.
Well, deadlines are deadlines, sure.
And
There's a lot to it and so forth. I think there's a better time to do this, to talk about this, than right now. I mean, if you demand that we talk
No,
about that.
I just needed to know, in order for me to make a recommendation
Sure,
as an advisor, I would need to know
okay,
why your application was late.
I would
Okay.
say the city definitely had serious miscommunications regarding.
it was miscommunications, pretty much.
And I just need to know that. If there
That's
is
all.
something
I
tangible,
mean, yeah, just
I need to know.
communications about one day and another day.
You know, if-
There were a lot
Different
of
days,
Am I
different days.
consistent?
in the RFP.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Which day
that-
was the right one, and nobody knew what it was.
So
Was
the
the
confusion
difference
was
of
on
the
the date.
day?
Well, neither of those days existed.
Yeah.
The dates that they listed don't exist on the calendar.
Even on the second addendum, which was the later
Right.
of the two.
So we didn't know if we were on time or not on time. You know what I mean? But we did everything we could.
But according to the city, you were late.
Well, that's what they were told us.
Okay. I just need.
Well, actually, I'm not even sure about that. I don't want to really say that.
Well, they were.
Because they haven't really told us that at all.
They just rejected the RFP.
Yeah, they just gave everything
just
back to
emailed
us.
everything
And we
back.
were like, okay, somebody gave me a big bowl of stuff. All of a sudden, it landed in my house. And it had everything in it, and I'm like, what the blazes is this? And what happened? And that's about all I know about it.
Okay.
Yeah. They took everything and sent it back to me.
That was my opinion too,
Yeah.
and I think Sandy feels the same way, that there
Okay.
was a miscommunication on date
Right.
and just getting the date correct.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll discuss that in just a bit. Thank you,
Okay.
Steve.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, next up, Adam.
Committee members, appreciate you giving me a minute here. Adam Deal, CEO of ProView Networks. First, I had one question was, do we have, and maybe this is directed to you, Jane, is there a time frame, do you think? Do we know when there's going to be a decision made on the RFP?
I don't know the answer.
We don't know.
I'm sorry.
Just curious, obviously, I think everyone's kind of curious because
Yeah,
the
I
start
would
date to take over the contract would be July 1st. And obviously, we're nearing, that's on the
Yeah.
proposal, right? So we're nearing there, and so, planning accordingly then, right?
Excuse me, just one second, Adam.
Sure.
Do we know how many have applied? If you
I
include,
have asked, but I haven't gotten that answer.
you can't even get the how many.
No.
Okay.
People are not very friendly.
Tell the mayor that sucks. And you can quote me on that.
Well, that goes into my next topic is business as usual for ProView Networks. As subcontractors of Comcast 26 right now, we're out of business. And this goes to, and Jane, you've helped very diligently with this, and we appreciate that, but we need to make it known that there is no AC in our building right now. And that is, I think, an ongoing battle with current contract holder, UPublic, and the city on to who's going to maintenance this, and we're kind of caught in the middle. That being said, it means we're out of compliance for our subcontract unless we do specific live events that are off-site, not pertaining to 519 Central. We've had Comcast come to the building and assess the damages, and they can be fixed easily, but there has to be a room temperature of below 75 degrees, which we cannot provide right now with the millions of fans that we've bought. And I mean, there's 100 of them in there to try to have a working atmosphere. So we just want to present that because right now it's struggling with consistency that we think we've built with the channel of Comcast 26. And you know, it's something that's kind of out of our hands right now. So I don't know if there is more that you public should be doing, probably, but maybe just a line of sight to which we can probably be up and running 24/7 like we advertise we are.
I
So-
appreciate you giving us that information.
So currently you're the AC in the entire building, and you're part of that entire building?
Correct. So it's,
Let me comment, the upstairs has AC, the bottom stairs doesn't have AC, and basically it's, we haven't had heat either since November of last year, so these are some issues that we have brought to you public, and they have ignored us for 6 months.
Is this building owned by the city?
Yes.
Correct.
So why isn't the city taking care of the maintenance of that building?
All right, so, actually, the city is, working on, getting the AC, replaced and repaired. So, let's see,
This is probably a department that you have no control over.
well, you
Sure.
know, no, I
And
mean,
we understand it's a process, right?
yeah, it's a
We get it.
process. Let's see, when did it, start? I think it started about a month ago, and B&D gave a quote, and the person who got the quote didn't understand that it was just for a troubleshooting and evaluation, right? And so that was $1,300. And so that's B&D, and they have an on-call contract with the city, well, through Department of Municipal Development. And so they went out, I think week before last, and they did the evaluation. And the evaluation, the results of the evaluation are, one, that the north unit needs to be replaced completely.
Which is
At the
what's
compressor.
bottom level.
Yeah, and that's the unit that cools the studio level.
And that is vital, just so you guys know, because that's where the servers
That would be my
upend
concern.
to Comcast directly. And so right now, currently, Comcast channel 26 is down. It can only play stuff that is on Comcast 27, mirror image to it. So you need 75 degrees to cool your servers before Comcast can fix the problem directly going into Comcast 26.
They won't fix it until, the ultimatum is basically, they know about the problem, but they won't fix it until air conditioning is fixed.
What Steve Davis and I in Provi Networks want to let everyone know, though, is, you know, if there's a reason why we're not compliant, this would be the reason. Of 45 hours of original content, which we've never missed. Well, now we're missing because of studio time, in which we have to cancel all of our studio shoots, live shows,
All right,
etc.
so B&D went out there about 2 weeks ago, and then the guy who did the evaluation, Dominic Espinosa, went on vacation or something. He was out of town last week, and so we were in touch with some of the other project managers at B&D, and so when Dominic came back, he then started researching the cost, because the first $1,300 was just to do the troubleshooting. So now they knew what was wrong. The north unit needs to be replaced, and the south unit has a leak in it, and it can be repaired.
They
And-
repaired that, I do believe.
What's that?
I think they did repair that because I was up in there.
I don't know that they repaired it, because we just got the proposal on Monday.
Well, there's air conditioning upstairs.
Yeah,
now, so.
so then, no, Friday. So then Dominic was out the week before, then he came back and he put out these inquiries. And so then I called Dominic and said, you know, what's up, you know, why is it taking so long? And so then I told him this is actually an emergency. Because, number one, this is, you know, I don't know, I didn't put it in order, but it's an emergency, number one, because this is public access broadcasting. This is something the community relies on, and that if Channel 7, you know, were off the air, people would, you know, treat that as a major event, right? And the second reason that it's an emergency is that there's nearly $1 million worth of equipment. That's the replacement value that it is insured for, and that the well-being of that equipment is in danger as long as the temperature, and so is as high as it is. So he said, okay, I'll get back on the line and I will see what information I can get. And so we did get that proposal on Friday.
And we appreciate the diligence. We just want to make everyone, I guess, know what the issues that we're going through right now. Because you would think just the AC, it would be like a minor detail, but it actually affects our entire operation.
Absolutely.
So the whole AC replacement costs $13,000. And that's because the unit costs $10,000. It can't be put, you know, you just can't carry it up there. You have to have a crane. So that crane costs $3,000. And so, you know, it's not necessarily the money, because the city is $1 billion operation, it's a big operation. It's not the money, but I'm just trying to convey that it is a major repair.
Right.
How long has it been out? I'm sorry, how long?
We hadn't had it.
Well, the heating and the air conditioning's been out for 5 months.
Right.
So the entire season, as far as the summer is concerned? Or beginning?
Yeah, and like I said, and again, James worked due diligently on this. It's just a matter of caught between the contract between you public and this deal. And we're actually in the middle of it, and we've been trying to, you know, do our compliance.
The heat being out didn't stop us from operating. Actually being cool is okay, right?
We brought in heaters.
It's fine.
You know, electric
But
heaters.
it's when the building started to get 90 to 100 degrees back in the server room, that's what affected everything. And now this has been affecting things for about 2 months now.
Well, and the transformer went out in December, right? And
Yeah, that was an
remember,
unfortunate
and
event.
so and that was, you know, that was because of vandalism, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah, and so I want you to know, and I sound like I'm defending the city, which is
Isn't that your job? I don't know.
sometimes it's my job. What happened with the transformer was, you know, we determined that the contractor, U Public, is responsible under the property lease because they don't pay rent, right? So they've had this whole building rent free for 5 years. And so the trade-off is that they pay for a lot of the maintenance and repairs. Anything short of the foundation, the walls, and they're not here today, and we have invited them, and we'll let them know that we had this discussion. If they want to defend themselves, they can come here next time. But, you know, it's being brought up by ProView, so I feel that we have to defend the city, right? And so back then, I made a demand on U Public to pay for the transformer because it's not part of the foundation or the roof, so they said no. But the city did step in right away, and I'm not, you know, and I'm saying this because the transformer got replaced right away. I'm not sure why the AC is taking so.
No, we agree, and there's issues.
Taking
the problem
longer.
is having a facility that maintains $1 million of equipment and more, and is live broadcasting or running a 24/7, you know, station. The maintenance of the facility is probably
So what's
the most
happening
important
is
thing.
that we're taking the IPEC funds and paying for the transformer because it's part of facilities, and it is a legitimate capital use of. It's $7,000 unit. It is part of the infrastructure.
Sure.
And you know, you look at it, what is the purpose of this thing, and what is the useful life of it, and that's how you can figure out whether to capitalize a piece of equipment or not. Sure. And so the city decided back then that it needed to protect the integrity of the building because you can't have a building without electricity. And did replace it right away and made a decision subsequent that it would use IPEC money and still, deal with that issue of reimbursement later. So the point here is that we were able to replace the transformer right away. I'm kind of going through the timeline on the AC. I'm not sure why that's taking longer. But I know what happened in the immediate past, and we are pushing it to occur in the next week or so.
Is in that time frame, does the city, and I don't know if you have the answer right now, but shouldn't the city have some kind of temporary AC units that can go into rooms and cool rooms, and those could be loaned off to ProView and or anybody else in that building?
So I can ask facilities about that.
I would please.
We asked you public for that, if they could help us out, and there was no comment with it, so I went and bought what we could afford with fans and heaters to where we could keep it efficient. But after the AC went out, we couldn't. I mean, right now it's 90 degrees in my office.
Nice.
Do this a lot.
No,
Okay?
like I said,
It might
we're-
help, just to start off with, I'm sorry for your hassle, but we'll get things taken care of, for sure.
Appreciate you guys listening.
Thank you. Colleen? Short, sweet, to the point.
Okay.
Thank
Oh,
you.
goodness. Okay, I want to say thank you to Nann and Jane for all your diligence and the work that you're doing. I appreciate it, especially in how thoughtful you are in considering all the issues. Let's see, there were a couple of things. I do want to say I support a resolution and an ordinance if that gets proposed that supports abiding or having the city abide by the principles of net neutrality. And you brought that up earlier in the discussion, and I think that's super duper important, and I'm really glad that you guys have an eye towards that. I want to say that with regards to Comcast proposing to exclude franchise fees on PEG channels, I am opposed to that. They also brought up that they let us use those channels and they want to take them back because we're not using it. Well, I would say, we let them use the land to lay their cable on and make money. So why don't we take that back? I would say that their argument is null and void based on that. And also, with regards to his point on Channel 27, it was made by the people with Jones Cable. I want to say Jonestown, but I think it's Jones Cable.
Jones Cable.
And Intercable. And when Comcast came in and took over the business, quote unquote, was written into the franchise agreements. It says, quote unquote, the operators of Channel 27. And Bill and Denise Makeley created that channel with the intention, as a protest to the privatization of public airways, because those airways had been taken over by NBC, ABC, CBS, and those had been formerly public airways. And so, that's where the point he comes up with that, we've been here from the start, that channel, quote unquote, they're tied together. And so in considering the negotiations with Comcast Cable, we believe that, quote unquote, should continue to be named as the operator of Channel 27, regardless of whether or not we get any money from the city, because we ran it before without money. The money helps, but quote unquote's primary mission and vision statement is really in support of freedom of speech. And so a lot of the issues that you guys brought up today, I actually wrote about in the RFP as well. So I do support the recommendation, if the cable board makes it, to have the city accept our proposal. But if the answer comes back as a big fat NO, then I would be happy to share that RFP with you so that you can see some of the discussion that does come up in the RFP. And some of the issues that I think I would like to bring up is the equitable allocation of funding across all access channels. I believe, I mean, just in doing a quick napkin plan on staff alone to do production, programming, training, things of that nature, comes up to about, I would say, 310 on the low end. That's with like the executive director getting 40,000, the director of ops getting 40,000, the training coordinator getting 40,000, and the I mean, after it was like ridiculous, and I was like, I think that COLA should also be taken into account, the cost of living allowances. Maybe it was, I think before it was 300, and maybe it was brought up 350,000. But I think it really does a disservice to the public, and I know that these guys have been working very hard to really, I mean, they're the reason why UPublic has been compliant in some ways, because they've been working hard on their own with their own money, and they've even been well, there's issues that UPublic not providing them funding that the city allocated them. I think it was $85,000. That was supposed to be in support of high school sports, and these guys never saw a dime of it, and they were ready to quit. And so they did, until the I don't know what date it was, but they had a meeting with the mayor, because they were asked to that meeting, and they were surprised to see city council members there, because UPublic continued its practice of misallocation of its own fund or whatever it is that it does. But I think really, like, for the access channels, maybe the city can consider increasing funding for each channel, because they are all important. If we're going to operate the 9 channels, it's like our children. They're all important. And they should all, we should, as parents, we should try and treat our children equally, and give them what they need in order to operate. And in applying for the RFP, I realized too that 519 is not, it doesn't have the capacity to meet the needs of public access, even when we were operating it. Right. We had 500 active producers who were creating that content. We were 5th in the nation for providing locally created, new first-run programming, and we were right behind Chicago and New York, and all that went away. But we got, we were already working on a tight budget, and it just got down, like, even the space, not even being able to meet the space needs to address people. And people like Nann, or people who were like physically handicapped, they couldn't go upstairs to edit. There was no elevator. The studio downstairs, I know we had 2 studios. In the past we were able to manage Studio A and Studio B, but it's hard to run 2 channels in that space, and so there does need to be another space. In my proposal, I did propose something that we've been trying to do, which is decentralize media resource centers. And so we called it CAMP, Community Access Media Pods. And those can be, they can be temporary, semi-permanent, or permanent. And so we've been working on this with partnerships. So with RFK Charter School, I would consider that a permanent site, because they have a radio station, that the facilities where we're operating it in the same manner as we're operating public access. It's for the South Valley, by the South Valley. If you're not from the South Valley, then you get a sponsor from the South Valley. And so programming is put on the radio channel there. And so the training part of it, you know, I think ProViews is really good at the programming part of it, but quote unquote has had over 30 years of training, media access, teaching people about, you know, media education and media literacy. And so, so I think that the funding, the city, maybe you could recommend to the city considering more equitable funding allocations for each PEG access channel, because I had spoken with Steve Davis, and he had thought about, you know, like we were talking about the value of 1 hour, and if it was quality program, it was about $500 per hour that's put on air. But if you split that across 2 channels, then the value goes down to like $100 an hour, and so then that's not as quality. And so it you know, it's just the thin resources are spread even thinner, and so and that was part of my protest. Really was also that the allocation, there should be more equitable access and allocation of funding so as not to do a disservice to the community, but also to the contractors. And because ProViews they've had to resort to a corporate model, not so much a community access model, but more of a corporate model, because they're not getting the funding, you know, and so then it starts to mess with, like, you know, who gets to choose what's on public access? Is it really freedom of speech? Can anyone and everybody come and access that? And I think with UPublic, one of the things that put me off was, I know how to operate a TriCaster. I was teaching people how to operate a TriCaster, but they told me I gotta pay $1,000 to like take their class to learn how to do this TriCaster thing. And then they told me, you know, you can't put anything controversial on this. And I'm Native American, I'm an artist, I'm a poet, I'm a woman. My show is going to be about that. I called it Alternative Views. It's going to be controversial because, goddamn, if you're an Indian, you're controversial. Because you're not mainstream, you know, so your ideas are different, you know. And so so that, like, I think going with the commercial approach to public access takes away some from the freedom of speech, because you're focusing on quality, not content. And sometimes it's not so much about the content.
Colleen, can you wrap it up in 1 minute? We
Yes.
have other speakers.
Okay. Let me see. So that's my request for the for reissuing the RFP, is to give more funding equitably. And I guess I think that's about it. I believe that the municipal sharing the broadbands and going with the municipal ownership of channels, I think that's a way to go, because that's kind of like what's coming down in the future anyways, so we need to figure it out. So do we want to be proactive or reactive about that?
Good
and
point.
Thank you everybody for your support of freedom of speech. I can see it in your questions and your thoughtful considerations, so I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Laura, did you want to speak?
Just a little bit, yeah. My biggest fears are that we repeat the same paradigm. And I get a little teary-eyed about it, because I'm going to practically hang myself if this happens again. We have and have always had a thriving public freedom of speech community here. You've heard the work they've done for 30 years. I mean, whether it's them or whoever, this city has always been phenomenal with that. And I used to live in the Bay Area, which is freedom of speech land. And they would look to some of the stuff we were doing at the station. So the reason I started fighting for it is because the potential in this tiny, poor community for leading the country in terms of how this can be handled, because there's plenty of other places around the country going through the same hell that we went through because of the takeover. So there's a lot of people I've spoken to who look to see what's happening here and are looking at how they can guide this by how we handle it. So 2 things for me is, one is we have to be proactive in terms of the technology. We have a university that's already getting behind fiber optics. If we are not taking our own airwaves into municipal consideration, we're going to be so left behind technologically, and we keep touting jobs and jobs and jobs. The only cities that are going to survive the new frontier are the ones who have their own sort of, infrastructure and everything. So that dialogue should be had with the universities and the tech, everybody. And they should be putting their resources into it. And this is part of it. Secondarily, I would really like more transparency about the monies for this. Because when I first started looking into those IPEG minutes, where they weren't even supposed to be allocating those funds, they would be told there was $300,000 and that's all they had. Then you look at the minutes, there's $1 million plus in there. So when she asks for more resources, it's because it's there. It's just going to buying private buildings from some contractor from the city instead of to the programming. So one of the things I'm begging the cable board to do, if you can, and I know you're riding the beast on this one, is to demand that you have absolute accountability of every single penny. That Rick Metz is refusing them when he's getting $30,000 a month to not put on programming, and he can't pay for them. I mean, that's just off the charts, and it's because the city was not keeping the reins on top of this, because it was run by a rogue organization called the IPEG instead of you folks. And so we need public transparency about this, because we could go back rather quickly based on the preparedness in the community, and whether it's them or anything. I mean, we're talking all over the municipalities here. There are so many people ready to put on content and programming. And if the excuse is there's no money, when in fact there is, but the city's hiding it from us, that's off the charts wrong in a community as vibrant as this. There's something so wrong with it. And the fact that these guys, as hard as they are working, have to take this corporate model when they shouldn't, when the money's there for them, is so wrong. And these are people who are doing a huge service to the community. There's so many youth who get off onto the right track because they've got sports or they've got after-school programs or something that keep them from that wrong track. And that's what these guys help to provide. And when you don't give them those resources and they have to resort to corporate model, then we get into this argument. Is that free speech, or is that yet another corporate model? They shouldn't even be in that position, because I think the money's there. So get the reins on the money. So, thirdly and lastly, I would really like you to reconsider, when I looked at both of the RFPs, both of them had dates that don't exist on the calendar. They put a date that does not exist on the calendar on the first one. They were contacted about it. They gave a second amendment, and it doesn't exist on the calendar.
So I understand that, and I'm very sympathetic to it. But I gotta also tell you, a question that keeps rumbling in the back of my mind is, why did you wait until the 9th?
And if I could answer that, but I do know they were physically present in the office before the deadline. They were physically in the office before the deadline, and the city made all these calls back and forth.
Before the 30th.
And then by the time
Before the 30th?
Yes.
Or 4
Yes.
p.m.
With the proposal in hand.
Yeah, they were still loading it in from the cars because it was such a huge proposal, but they were in the offices before the deadline. And the city made all these calls around and this and that, and by the time they decided it was over, they determined that when they figured out what was going on, that's when the date was, which was already whatever, 10, 15, 20 minutes late. So they made the call on that. They were physically present in the office loading in the documents before that deadline. So you can let them tell their story. I'm not going to argue that. I wasn't there. But I can tell you that they were physically present loading that stuff in.
You were there, Steve?
I was there, and it's rec, if you look at the line over there, you'll see my name, remember?
And again,
It
I'm
was
not
before 4 o'clock.
I'm not going to demand anything if you folks determine that was improper, because these folks are resilient. They've been doing this for 30 years. They're going to keep doing it no matter what. They're going to partner with whoever you pick. I just want to make sure that we understand what public access is, because as corporations take care and monopolize everything, the tiny gem we have in this country, and it's not even the internet anymore because that's so co-opted, the tiny beautiful gem we still have in this country of free speech is public access. And if you find the stations like in Boston and Northern California and stuff that are still going, they're absolutely beautiful models of freedom of speech and public access. And if you don't include the training aspect of it, so that if you're considering an RFP from somebody and they don't have the training model, it's not public access. I want my grandmother to be able to walk in, learn how to use a camera, learn how to edit, know what the deadline is, and get her show about knitting on in time for the deadline, because TV stations have deadlines, and you have to learn what you're doing, you have to learn your chops. He knows that really well. You don't just walk in late and show up and drink coffee. You gotta be, your show doesn't go on air if you don't
All this
finish.
time, I thought that's the way it worked.
But that's why the previous
Golly, have I
contractor
got-
didn't wanna do it, because it's a lot of hard work, and
I
to put
know.
on that much data and meet all those deadlines time after time after time is hell on earth. And so I just want whoever gets the contract to understand what they're in for, comply with freedom of speech, comply with public access, not the corporate model, which is 99.9% of all our airwaves now, and get back what we had.
I thank you very much, Laura.
Well, I thank you too, because I know you're listening, and I really appreciate it.